Although my costume collection probably takes up most of the space, but so many dresses, so many caftans. One can never have enough
Yeah.
gloves and shoes.
Even Amanda Ducati could remember accessories.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Parallel Drives, a bi-monthly podcast where we talk about our past, our friendships, our journeys, and everything in between. I'm one of your hosts, Joe DeLuth II, and I am here with my best friend, James Vincent. Hi, James.
Hello.
So we apologize. We missed a week because we were both very busy and it was hard to get our schedules to match up. So we apologize for that. So we're going off schedule a little bit, but that's okay. We'll still try to do every other week. But how was your 2 weeks, James?
I thought you were going to apologize because I'm in a shirt that is appearing to be blue.
I do want to apologize for that. I am wearing a black shirt that is.
I am wearing
You're
a
wearing
black.
a navy blue. You can say it's gray all you want. It's navy blue.
It said black on the order. It's also kind of like witchy shaped. Like I'm like
It is. It's. I at first I
put a
thought you were
cowl,
wearing like a
like a cowl.
smock or a wrap or something. Like something a little
It's from
cowl.
the B. Arthur collection.
Yes,
I
it's
have
great.
a detachable cowl that I can add on.
And it goes all the way down to the floor.
I wear it with
Slouchy boot.
a slouchy boot is exactly what I was trying to say and couldn't remember the words. You know me so well.
I know. I know. Um,
How have you been this last few weeks?
I have been pretty good. I finished the paintings that I was commissioned to do.
Mm.
All 6 of them are done. I'm really, really happy with them. Um, I think they will be as well. It's really given me a new direction too of how I want to paint and what I want to paint and where I see my art going. And it's really mixing this masculine and feminine together in different ways. And so I went camping this weekend and it was on the Cape, and the trees on the Cape are all like weird, creepy shapes. They're not just like, they don't go straight. They're all like weird and twisted and and it really gave me an idea. I took a whole bunch of pictures because I want to get canvases and I want to tape up the canvases, but leave the shapes of the trees that I took pictures of as the canvas, paint over the whole thing, and then take the tape off so you only see sections of the face. And to sort of explore that, the masculinity and femininity, but also like hiding, what do you see, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out once the tape, and I want to take the tape off in one piece so that way then the tape becomes another piece
Oh, cool.
of art. So you see the negative space, and then in the negative space, instead of leaving it white, I'll paint it a bright color like I do with all of my stuff. So but yeah, so it was good, and camping was fantastic. I love it so much. I forget that I love it so much, so I want to do more of it. Of course, I only realized this at the end of the summer. But I slept really well. First night, my neck was killing me because I couldn't get comfortable, but my back felt fantastic. I was like, God, maybe I should just sleep on the floor. But then the other nights it was totally fine. My neighbors were like super nice and friendly. The first night it was these 2 guys who were leaving the next day, and he came over and he was like, fully masked, and he was like, hey, I just thought I'd bring you a snack. He's like, we're leaving tomorrow, we brought too much food. He's like, this is all tomatoes and basil from my garden, and so I made this little thing. He's like, I don't know if you're vegan because there's cheese in it. I was like, well, I can't eat cheese, but I'll eat the rest of it. And it was like delicious. It's like little cherry tomatoes and mozzarella and basil and like a balsamic. I was like, oh.
I just, I'm not a camper, but B, if I was at a campsite and someone brought me over something, that's like the beginning of a horror movie.
You think that, but it's a different, I don't know. I mean, I grew up camping, so that's so there's this weird social structure in camping, um that
I
people
mean,
are
I used to
super
camp as a Boy
friendly.
Scout, but mostly I just hid in the showers watching people shower.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little different. I'm not sure I would have hidden any of these showers to watch these people, but I kept hoping. I was hoping there was going to be like some cute gay couple or something that would camp next to me, but no, not so much. Um, but uh, but yeah, there's this weird like social structure to it where like people are super friendly. Everybody talks to you. Like,
That sounds like my nightmare.
well, I guess.
I don't want people to talk to me. It's why I could never have a dog. Like a dog is an invitation for strangers to talk to you. Like I really, I have so many people I have to talk to as it is that the idea of adding in yet another obligation to talk to people, no, I would
Well,
pretend that.
it's not. I mean, it wasn't like everybody just came up to my campsite and just wanted to chat, but like what happened, he came up and that's all. He just chatted for a little bit and then he left. And then the next day they were packing up. And so I was going down to the beach. So I just said, thank you again for the snack last night, have a great trip back. And that was it. And then the people that came in after, like on one side, they didn't really weren't social and they were never even really there. I was like, why are you camping? Because you're not even here. But people on the other side, I ended up seeing them down at the beach. And so they were like, hey, you're camping right next to us. I was like, yeah. So we chatted for a while. And then when we went back, we chatted for a while. But it's not like we went and hung out at each other's campsite. Just,
You just leave your stuff and people just are like, oh, that's someone else's stuff.
yeah, I mean, I packed things up and then put it in my tent and then closed the tent. So if I left, because there's like a rainproof top that goes over it, and there's like this little sort of entryway in the front. So I put like the cooler and stuff in there, like the burner and everything. I put it in my tent and then just close it up. I mean, no one. I don't know. It's just a weird thing. Like no one goes into other
Maybe
people's.
I'll have to talk Jeremy into taking me camping because if I had to set up things like a rain cover and something to cook on, I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I'm just
But that's why you have someone else do it for you. Like I love doing it. Like I had to set up a tarp because I knew it was going to rain, so I had to set up a tarp. And I was like, oh my god, how am I going to set this up? Like, how do I tie these to the trees? Like, where's the best place to put this? And then I have to set it at an angle so that the water like pours off and doesn't collect in the middle, and then you get this big thing.
no. I feel like I would be like Goldie Hawn and like Overboard or like Shelley Long in Troop Beverly Hills with
Yep.
like a camping scenario. It's just not me. I know, like I would like to pretend because I have all of these things where I'm like, oh, there's this bear campground in Pennsylvania. How great would it be to hang out with a bunch of fat people and people who like bearded fat guys? But then the thought of like bugs.
You know
I'm a
what?
city kid. I'm a
No
city kid.
bugs. I had no mosquitoes, nothing. I never used my bug spray once. I mean, there were daddy long legs were around, but and a couple of bees, but other than that, there was nothing.
Mm. I will come visit you the next time you go camping and stay at a nearby hotel.
It was right outside P Town, so it was perfect. But yeah, and I was like, oh, next time I got some like different lights so I can string like lights up so I can create like a nice space, you know.
Okay, I'm happy you had a good time.
I did. I did. What about you?
I have been sitting in the same place,
You just never get
waiting,
up off that
waiting,
chair anymore.
counting,
You no longer
wait.
have a bottom half of you. You're just like a torso on the chair.
Yeah,
Never
I
move.
know it's been like, trying to figure it all out and trying to make sense of it all and being emotionally and intellectually depleted by the craziness of our country and trying to move forward and trying to stay optimistic and I don't know, New York is a very strange place right now. I am hoping that all of the people who keep saying New York is dead will just move out and then we can just have a good New York again. It's like, see you later, Kayla. Bye, Karen. Like, let's have New York back the way that it should be. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's good. It's a lot. I have a lot of social obligation, and people always want to talk to me. People always want to hang out with me. People always want to text me, and I really think I just need like a return to quarantine for a week where I'm just on my couch again with no one,
with
you
not
know.
having to deal with anything.
Yeah, I think I'm not complaining, but I think that my quarantine experience has been very different than other people's, and that I've been working, other than the first week or so, for first few weeks when I was sick, I kind of have had to, because we work for ourselves, I've kind of really had to work 10 times as hard just to create opportunity. And so
Yeah.
I think it just hit me this week where I was like, usually we're away, like usually you and I are away this
Yeah.
weekend together, and it just kind of hit me. I'm like, I haven't seen friends, I haven't seen family, I haven't left these these walls. And then yes, Jeremy was like, well, go get a hotel for a night, and I'm like, that's not what I'm saying I want to do. Like,
Yeah.
I miss like social time away from work. I feel like I've been working a lot, so.
Yeah, and well, I have to say, like, because I really haven't, aside from my dad's funeral, I really haven't left here at all. I've been stuck in here. I've been working in that shop for the last month or so. So going 2 days a week to work in a shop, but
And drop the attitude, you only work in a shop.
you know, I'm waiting for someone to say that to me. Um, but yeah, so but like getting out and going someplace different and being in a different environment, and not really feeling like I had to pay attention to anything. Like I got emails in and I would look at them and I was like, you know what? I don't need to respond to that now. I'm good. They're not going to
Yeah, I get that. I
die
appreciate
the
that.
world. And it was really nice just to be in a different environment. And also, Wi-Fi was not great at the camp. They had it, but it was like in and out. So, I did a lot of reading,
Yeah.
um, and listened to music and danced around in my caftan one night. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I have seen beautiful friends in the last few weeks that I haven't seen,
yeah,
and a few people that came to visit from other places who I don't want to call out because she is a listener to the podcast. And she might not know people to know she was in New York City, so I don't know. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm very lucky. I'm just having one of those days where uh, the anxiety of what I have to accomplish in a short period of time
mhm,
is starting to feel um, like pressure.
yeah. Well, hold
But
that thought because that would have been a perfect segue into our second topic, but we haven't even gotten to our first topic, our blue plate special topic.
okay.
So let's we're gonna move to the blue plate special this week, and
Mhm.
we had mentioned this in the last podcast when we were talking about the Saturday morning cartoons. We had talked about the Laugh Olympics and how it was based on Battle of the Network Stars. So we thought, well, why not do a little dive into the Battle of the Network Stars? Not going to be a huge dive because there's not, it's not a
Kind of says it all right there.
in-depth topic. But it was definitely something that was part of our youth, part of our growing up, something that you looked forward to. So
Mostly because you got to see 70s heartthrobs in those small
short,
shorts and bathing suits that were so popular at the time. I feel like the biggest injustice in sports is that they took these really sexy 70s uniforms from baseball and basketball and like swimming,
yep.
and now have made them just acres and acres of fabric.
Yeah, I was watching like some clips from it just to, refresh my memory a little bit. And I mean, it was what Greg Evigan and the
Greg.
the guy from Trapper John MD, the young doctor. Oh my God! And I was just like, ooh. I was like, wow. I mean, I love a '70s body and a
Yeah, me
'70s
too.
'70s haircut. Like it's just the '70s bodies were like in good but not perfect. So it was like they were bit like they were muscled but not, it wasn't like perfect muscle, you know.
Yeah, it was just like active,
Yeah.
you know. Uh, I am Googling it as we're here.
It
See.
was a good one.
But then they throw in like a Robin Williams or a Scott Baio, and you're like, no, I'm looking for Kurt Russell.
Or Ed Asner. Um,
Jacqueline Smith sitting with a young Christy McNichol.
yep.
Oh,
Um,
that is the picture that Norman Rockwell forgot to paint.
it is. It is. So, for those of you listening who don't know what this TV show is, so this was a TV show where when you only had the three major networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS, they decided to do a competition the between the stations. So it started in 1976 and it aired on ABC, ran till 1985. And then they did, and it was like every 6 months they would do this. And whoever the like popular athletic, or maybe not so athletic, like Telly Savalas,
Like
uh, stars at the time, Dick Van Patten, they would get them and there would be a team captain. Usually it was always a man, sadly, because it was
yeah,
the 70s. And always usually an older-ish kind of man that was a little bit more established in
more
the,
like a coach.
yeah. And so they would have a team of like 8 to 10 people, mix of male and female, and they would do all these competitions. They do like swimming, and they would do the relay race. And I looked, they did bowling. I totally forgot they did bowling. Um,
Really?
yeah, tennis, kayaking. They did an obstacle course, baseball dunk. That was my favorite. It was just like you throw the baseball at the target, and then it dunks the person.
Yeah, and it would be like Charlene Tilton would be like,
Yep, yep.
like, I feel like I actually remember her being in the dunking booth or
Yeah,
something like
Cheryl Ladd. I was watching that earlier too. Cheryl Ladd was in there.
probably a Suzanne Summers.
Yep. And then they at the end, whichever two networks had the highest scores, they would do a tug of war, which was always like a massive thing, and they would exert so much. And when they would be done, it was like they were so exhausted, and then they would like spray champagne all over and all over
And
Howard
everybody wore those
Cosell.
short jogging shorts with the piping around the side. I don't even know what those are called.
Short jogging
With like
shorts.
a high sock with
Yeah,
a
and it was like they
stripe,
had the little
the
high, it
matching
would go
stripe.
up a little bit on the side, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And that the white sock with the same color stripes around it.
Yeah, because
And probably a Nike
each
shoe.
network had its own color.
Yeah.
So red, yellow, and blue, I believe. I don't remember which network was which, but the memory that I always have is Linda Carter, because there's this famous one where Linda
Oh
Carter
yeah.
was in a was she in her bathing suit, or was she in
Yeah.
just a shirt? And you could see her nipples through it, and it was such a scandalous thing. But I yeah, and they would do like little profiles on some of the celebrities each week. And there's a, and Howard Cosell would narrate it in that
Yeah.
Howard Cosell type of way, who's a sports announcer back in the day, and he was very serious about his reporting of this, which was like
Yeah.
just a big ridiculous show. And uh, but he would say like some of the craziest things, like it was so sexist. And
Yeah.
what he called her, the lustrous Linda Carter, in one of the things, like when she was about to start swimming, he was like the lustrous Linda Carter. And so they would always have this, and it's just, it reminds me of that time. It's just that time of growing up with shows on TV where they would have these celebrities from different shows. Like, you'd have Match Game where they would have the celebrity panel. You'd have Hollywood Squares where they had the celebrity panel. And it was something about seeing these celebrities outside of their television shows and seeing
Yeah.
them as real people that really appealed to us during the 70s.
I think so. I mean, I think that's probably one of the reasons why social media is so big right now and people create celebrities in places like TikTok. I think that there's something about going into someone's life that is famous that people really enjoy. And it's funny because I think, you know, as a makeup artist, I've worked with some of the most famous people in the world, you know, without exaggeration. But the ones that people tend to react the most over are people from reality for some reason, or people who are themselves, you know,
Yeah.
like um, I've done huge videos with huge people that have dynamic followings, but watching someone who uh, like a Jillian Michaels who came into people's home and helped them lose weight. I've never seen fans as responsive to a celebrity's presence, you know, as far as like you always have people crying and like doing all of that.
Yeah.
But the emotion that a lot of the reality stars get was really shocking to me because I think because we work in that world, you
Yeah.
know, um, and I've done, you know, the reality contest shows and I've done the reality whatever terrible shows. But it's just it's always such a very strange thing for me. But then I think about how growing up, you know, without ever thinking that I would be on a TV show or work with someone on a TV show, how that was kind of my I would watch old movies and like become obsessed with those celebrities in a
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand it, but I think it's a very strange mistress, you
Yeah.
know, the draw to celebrity.
Yeah. Yeah, and to think of like, looking forward to watching this show, to watch these people just compete. And what you wouldn't, it's not even like the Olympics where you could sit there and watch an entire competition. They would edit it down. So
Yeah.
you'd be like, and here is Sarah Purcell bowling. Oh, she didn't get it, but she knew she was not going to be good from the beginning. Now let's move on. And you'd be like, what? I didn't even get to see it. Like they would
No,
literally
they
do like
said Sarah
2 minutes.
Purcell.
Yeah. 2 minutes of clips of like an event, and you'd be like, "But I wanted to see what happened."
Yeah.
And they just, yeah, they would just kind of. They always showed the full tug of war usually because that was the big.
Yeah, that was like the dramatic tension of the episode.
Yeah,
Who was going to come out on top?
yeah, and they would always like it would just be such a struggle, and just
And people were very loyal to their networks, you know, like uh, local networks. You know, I think people like you either grew up watching like your local newscast on NBC and that's what you watched every day, or like my family watched the Today Show and they watched the soap operas on NBC, and like so we were probably like an NBC family.
yeah. So were we.
Yeah, but
Because
then all of a sudden it would be like, you know, whatever night it was that I don't know, the Love Boat was on ABC or whatever, Saturday nights. And so that was like an ABC night. You know, it was such a different time in the way that people connected to media and entertainment. And I think because of that celebrity, you know, people came into your homes. The newscasters were the people you trusted the most.
And even
You,
they were celebrities. Like I
yeah,
remember meeting one of the like newscasters, Patrice Wood from Channel 10 in Providence, who's still on, which is
still
crazy
on.
to me
Still
that she
looks
was on when
great.
I was a
She's
kid. She's still
keeping it tight. She looks
um,
amazing.
yeah, and I remember like it was a dog show or something in Pawtucket or somewhere, and we had gone to it, and she was there, and I got to meet her and talk to her and take a picture with her, and it was like such a big thing to meet her. I just
Well, yeah, because you trust these people. Like I did a thing for a while with New York One where I would go on and talk about makeup. But the person, Kristen Shaughnessy, who is my friend now and who brought me on, like when I first met her, I was like she was my news every morning.
yeah.
She's the person who got me through September 11th, you know? So you have a different I'm getting emotional. You have a different way of connecting to the people that kind of bring you the news. And it's funny because Jeremy is of a generation where he doesn't watch the news, he reads his news. And there's something about having messages delivered to you by someone that you trust,
Yeah.
which is incredibly difficult right now, to kind of weed through what is, you know,
Yeah.
real. It's
I've
not.
kind of lost any interest in listening to anybody bringing me my news because
Yeah.
I just, yeah. I mean, when, going through when we were sitting with my dad before he died, and they would like that. I think we talked about this in the podcast too, where they would like it'd be like you'd watch the 12:30 news and the 12 o'clock news and then the
Yeah.
12:30 news and then you'd watch the 5 o'clock news and the 5:30 news and the 6 o'clock news and the 6:30, and you're like, you're just telling me the same damn stuff over and over and making it sound more dramatic each time you say it.
But it's like you start to understand why a certain base has such a skewed view of what the world actually looks like, because they are inundated with information that
Yeah.
has a bias over and over and over again. Like, I had a doctor's appointment yesterday that I was really nervous about, and they were blasting TMZ the entire time that I was there. And I thought, this is not interesting. And it's really like a toxic celebrity news culture.
And
You
also because you can get your news 24 hours now. So you can literally sit there all day with the news on all day long and hear the same things over and over, and maybe one thing changes because they found out some more information, but you're just hearing this over and over, and we only got it. We had the evening news. That's all I remember. We watched the evening news, the local evening news, and then we watched the national evening news, and it
yeah,
was NBC is what we
and
watched.
kind of everybody did for certain things. Like, I was thinking back
Then you
to
switch channels and watch Wheel of Fortune. And
Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, I think, yeah, same. Maybe PM Magazine.
mm-hmm.
But I was thinking, like, the first time that I became aware of like scandal, like celebrity scandal,
Klaus von Bülow.
Klaus von Bülow.
Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say Sonny and Klaus von Bülow,
Yeah.
because that was in Rhode Island. And
Yep.
then, remember, I think it was you know how time is in your mind, but
Yeah.
then it was also like all of the women that brought down like powerful men who were like hypocrites. So it was like Jessica, Fawn, and like
Marla Maples.
Marla Maples
And
and Donna. It
uh,
was like, remember, it was like
yep.
Jessica Hahn or something like that. It was like all of these scandals that kind of happened, and then the shredding, of, I don't even remember what the actual was, but it was just like all of these young women that were like, all of a sudden scandalous.
Yep.
And it just seemed like such a funny time. It seemed like a real change in the news
Yeah.
for me. And I just was listening to the podcast from My Favorite Murder, and they were saying that one of the biggest changes in the way that people receive news was the baby Jessica story,
Yes.
because CNN had just been a 24-hour network for however long, but people weren't used to getting 24 hours of a news cycle, and still had that same idea like we did, like you watch your news at noon and 6:30 or whatever it was. And that the baby Jessica in the well became such an international story that people were like glued to their TV watching CNN 24 hours.
Right. Because
And
they wanted
that,
to know if she was free,
yeah,
they wanted to see her be pulled free.
yeah, so funny.
Yeah.
um,
Well,
I also
where is she now?
oh, I guess, like, it's still like it's a study in tragedy. Some of the heroes from the baby Jessica McClintock story, like, it just like they couldn't handle the local celebrity, and then people thought the family was like, they wanted to know what happened with all the money because they raised so much money. And oh, it was like, really, it's an interesting listen. It's an episode of My Favorite Murder that I really enjoyed. Of course, I cry. I cry during every episode of My Favorite Murder. Like, Jeremy will come in from the other room and be like, "Are you crying?" And he says that like every episode, like it's a shock that I'm crying.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm very emotional.
yeah. Speaking of emotion, Uh, that's a perfect segue into our next topic, which we're going to talk about. We had originally planned to talk about one thing, and as we were discussing before we started recording, um, we realized that something else was on our minds right now, and so we're going to talk about that instead. So, James, you want to start it off?
Yeah, I forgot we switched topics. I was still talking about celebrity stuff. Um,
No, we're
that,
switching. No, we're switching topics now into
yeah,
the.
yeah, no, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I was. I don't really know. I don't even know how to put it into words. I guess the state of things. Like, how are we emotionally and energetically prepared to kind of deal with the onslaught of the everyday news right now and like the craziness and chaos of not only coming out of a pandemic, but kind of moving forward from where we are. Is
Mm,
that what we're talking about? I don't know.
that is what we're talking about. Yeah.
And then, you know, I think on top of that, like the political craziness that's in the news every day. Um, and the reason I brought this up is that I've had, you know, all of these kind of sleepless nights, and in my meditations, in the morning, I'm really having to focus on gratitude because I think there's a real fear. And when I talk to my friends, um, I think that there's a real fear and a real anger and a real like exhaustion. You know, my Black friends are exhausted from everything that's happening in the world. My queer friends are exhausted from having to defend, you know, their beliefs to family members. You know, people are. It's just the world is so crazy right now, and there's so much misinformation that's
Mhm.
being passed around and around. And sometimes I look at people I grew up with, and I'm like, how are you reposting this article that is obviously, you know, not real news?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you know, I think it's just starting to wear. Today it got me. Today it got its little hooks in me, which I
Yeah.
have been really good at kind of keeping myself sane. And today I got a little hooked.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're getting to this point now too where it's almost like things have stagnated. Like when we were in quarantine, we knew this is what we were going to be for a while. So we were prepared for that. Then it sort of was like, okay, now we're going to open up. So we were in this exhilaration of like things are opening up. We can go places again. We can do things again. And now it sort of feels like there's this weird stagnation of like, we don't know what's happening. We
Yeah.
don't know what's going on. We don't know when we'll ever be able to work again. We don't know what the state of the world is going to be. Um, are things going to get worse or are things going to get better? And then it's that sort of everything sort of leveling out to a place where you don't feel like things are going to get better, and you also don't feel like things are going to get worse. So you're in this state of like, well, what is going to happen then?
And I think it's the uncertainty and the ambiguity that create a lot of the stress and pressure of those base emotions because you cannot just pull up your bootstraps and move forward, or you can't like put a real plan in place because you don't have all of the information that you need. And I think that what I have seen with so many of my artists is that it's just a really difficult time where people are trying to be realistic and trying to remain hopeful, and it just kind of feels like you know, everyone is just doing the best they can, but with also with what they have, you know. Like I think in New York we dealt with this, we saw had so much illness and so much death and so much sickness, and we see people in other parts of the country refusing to do something as easy as wearing a mask, you know. And so it does feel a bit like, okay, well, we stayed home and did what we were supposed to do for so many months and pushed so that this wouldn't spread beyond our city. Um, And then it got to other places and people just didn't care. Like, we talked to some friends the other night and they still don't know anyone who's even been sick.
Yeah.
And so I think it just um, feels very difficult. And I think that what's happened in America is most people are not critical thinkers. I think they're not able to take in information and figure it out for themselves. And, that's kind of what I was saying to Jeremy last night. I think that is the thing that is craziest to me as someone who was raised very Catholic, where you and I think, were raised very similar. Like, we were raised to live the corporal and spiritual works of mercy. Like, we were raised in families where we were active in our communities and took care of the homeless and fed the hungry. And, that was very much what religion was in our families.
Yeah. You were supposed to take care of your community and
Yeah.
around
And
you. Yeah.
it feels kind of crazy to me that there's this disconnect now. Or, something as crazy as, like, I know this is very hot topic, political, but even the socialization that you have when you're little from watching like cowboy movies or like superhero things is you never would never shoot a person in the back because
Yeah.
that's what a coward does.
Yeah.
You know, a good man would never shoot a person in the back, and a cop will only draw their gun when they're
Their
in
life is in
danger
danger.
of being shot.
Yeah.
And we're so raised on those tropes, And so I think, in addition to all of the craziness that's going on, is you have to start realizing that a lot of the socializations that you had that were kind of like your security also have to disappear. And so
Yeah.
I think that it leaves people struggling to find answers. And
Yeah.
if you're not a critical thinker, it feels very easy to just have a authority figure,
Tell
whether
you.
you believe them or not, or trust them or not, or know they're lying or not, to give you information that then you can kind of cherry pick through to fit your own life. That's Jeremy. This is from my conversation with Jeremy, who's much smarter than I am.
Yeah.
But it's been really weighing heavily on me. How are people that I was raised with in the same church, in the same school, able to look at violence or anger or oppression? How does someone who's raising a daughter, allow women to be treated a certain way, or any other? How do you look at another person and think that because of the color of their skin that they don't deserve things? Like, these are huge
Yeah.
issues that we're also dealing with, probably because of certain privileges that I haven't had to deal with before, at the same time that we're dealing with a pandemic. And so it's kind of, I think, pushing people to feel a little overwhelmed.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's also happening is a lot of these things, what's been happening with me is that a lot of these things I'm questioning my own self and the things that I used to say. And so, like, that just seemed normal at the time and didn't seem like it was causing any kind of aggression, wasn't causing any kind of racism or homophobia or anything like that. And thinking back, because my big thing is I've been taking this time to educate myself more. So I've been doing a lot of reading and reading specific books. And, I just read Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram XD. And excuse me. And learning about racism from before this country was even founded, and how all of the laws that have been put in to sort of be anti-racist have some racism in them.
Right.
And just everything. And then movies, like, it's blowing, like, learning all these things is like blowing my mind. Like Rocky was a movie about the white man taking down a black man, like, because, and it goes much deeper into it than that, and I'm not going to go any further than that, but like, all of these things that I remember from growing up and that I would do or say, or things that I enjoyed. Planet of the Apes, which is one of my favorite movies, like, again, about, a white man going into a place where apes have taken over,
Yeah.
and finds out that it's actually Earth. Uh,
Yeah.
and then moving on, after I did read that, I just finished reading The Deviants War, the homosexual versus the United States of America, which follows one of the first gay rights activists, Frank Kemeny, from, who's an astronomer, a PhD astronomer, who was, his security clearance was taken away because he was arrested in a bathroom because some man touched his penis. And cops were there and they saw it and they arrested him. And it was like his fight and his struggle. But then, like, and I've always known this about the gay struggle as well, about how there's homophobia within the gay world, and
Completely.
it's only for white gay men, and that was about it. But it's like following this history and learning more of the history of where I come from, and the people that came before me, and learning the different things. And it's mind-blowing how now I'm going back and looking at who I was and how I was, and the words that I used and the things that I said,
Yeah.
realizing how I was a part of that. I was a part of that racism. I was a part of that homophobia. Um,
Yeah, and I think unpacking that privilege and knowing that you need to do it, like knowing that it's necessary, and the embarrassment or you know the realization of the fact that you have been carrying this around, and how that must have impacted friends and relationships and people that you love, and your privilege was just in the way. And so I think we've been reading and doing our own work, and then I'm also encouraged by the fact that we're hearing other people's stories. When I'm watching television now and we're seeing, trans characters and trans writers, we're seeing black characters and black writers. It's like, I think that this is going to be so important for changing the narrative as well, because I think growing up for us, everything was a white, straight story. And
or
you
written by a
directed by a
white
man.
person,
Yeah.
white straight man, usually. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, written by, directed by, produced by a white straight man. And so we didn't see ourselves. And then if I think about how not only important, but essential seeing myself was to my development, the way that it gave me courage, the way that it gave me connection, I can only imagine that as we start seeing and hearing and watching indigenous stories, Latin stories, more black stories, stories from women, stories from other cultures, other religions. Like, I think that that has got to be the change, because I think that we were just kind of steeped in this whiteness.
Yeah.
And I'm not complaining about having to do the work or unpacking my privilege. I feel very lucky that people are giving me time and space to do that. But I do worry, with one of my friends I spoke to the other day, who's a black woman and the mother of black children, black sons. Like, this is wearing on her in a very different way.
Yeah.
And I think that my privilege, I don't have kids. I can't imagine navigating this all with children, or, not in this body. And I just feel like, I think a lot of people are at that point. And so I guess today what I want to do with the podcast is just encourage people to keep pushing and learning. It's what we have to do. We have to explore our own socializations and our own educations, and we have to dismantle and unpack the things that maybe keep us from becoming the people that we need to be for other people in our life.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to not be afraid of this change. I think that we have gotten so comfortable, and I say this to my family all the time because they're always like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this pandemic's happening. And I was like, but why? Why can you not believe it's happening? Like, why do you think it's so unnatural that this is happening? Like, we live in a world, we've just got so comfortable with the way that we've lived. and
Yeah.
the ease of it and the easiness of a lot of it. And now we're being made uncomfortable in a lot of different ways, not just having to sit in our homes by ourselves, but like in so many different ways. And putting yourself out there and being able to experience those emotions, like it's okay. And it's okay if you have a day where you are crying the entire day and curled up in a ball on your couch, like, because that's what you need to do, because this is an emotional time, this is a stressful time. I have it in the back of my mind every day. It's like, I don't have work, my unemployment's going to run out at some point. I have this teeny tiny little bit of savings that I'm living off of, and which isn't going to last me much longer. And it's always in the back of my mind. And so it's like, well, what do I need to do? And then I'm like, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to try and do this. And then I'm like, but then I'm getting emails saying, well, this project is happening next year, and this project is happening next year, and this project is happening next year. And so we're going to need you here for this, and we need you here for this. And I'm like, but is it? Can I count on that? Like, am I going to be going to South Korea to set up Beetlejuice in March? I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
about that. Like, and so then you start to think, then you start to question, like, okay, I'm going to go in this direction now because this is obviously not working for me anymore. And I need to find something to do. And then you start to go in that direction. And then this pulls you back here with the promise that this may be happening. And the how do you balance that? How do you decide what is the right thing to do? Do I sit around and do nothing, and just keep working on my art and hope that the things will start to get back to sort of the way they were, next year? Or do I pursue something that I've been wanting to do for most of my life and have always been afraid to do it? Always been afraid to let go of what this is that I've had to
I
do
think this is
something.
the time to leap, and this is the time to learn.
Yeah,
This is the time to think outside of yourself. I think that we are being pushed to and called to do the work that allows us to be better than we are.
yeah,
And we have privilege to be able to do that. And then to think about the things that are bigger than you. You don't necessarily have answers about what March looks like, but there are things that you can start to put in place and prepare for.
yeah,
And do cross education, like educate yourself and then cross educate yourself. What are the things that you're passionate about? What are the things you've never been able to do because you didn't have the time to put in for the research? What are the opportunities that you've let go because you thought you were clearly on a well-defined path, and now that there's an obstacle, maybe this allows you to say, well, I can start doing the research into these things, and when opportunity comes again, then I can make much more informed decisions about where I need to dedicate my time and my effort. And I think that's what I'm really encouraging people to do. Use this time to keep learning. Do the hard work, the work that you don't have time to do on yourself because you're taking care of a client or you're on set. And be able to say, this is something I've always been interested in, or this is something that I've always imagined I would be good at, and now might be the time to try it.
yeah,
And then for you, I think that there are definitely ways, once you have multiple opportunities, it becomes much easier to manage how to seize every opportunity.
yeah.
You It's just making sure that you don't get stagnant and suffocated in the uncertainty of where we are right now.
Yeah, and I think having lived a life where um, there was always a fear of leaving because financially, of course, and then thinking, you always have in the back of your mind, can I do this? This is something totally different than what I've ever done. Can I do this? And so that fear always creeps in. But what's been great about this time is that there is the time to think about that and to confront that fear and to really spend the time with that fear and let it become part of you so that you can deal with it and you can move through it. And I think that's what's really important. And I would talk with my students all the time about fear, because they would always, at the university, they're always at this state where they think everything they do is awful and they hate themselves and it's ridiculous. And I would always have to be like, there's no self-deprecation in this class. If this is what you're going to do, then you can just leave this class, because I don't allow it here. And we would talk about fear, and I was like, fear is always going to be a part of you. You can't just think that it's going to go away. I said, but you have to be able to move through it and let it become a part of you so that it doesn't overwhelm you.
I
And
love that.
yeah, and I think that's one of the things that this time has been really good for, is because I have this time, and a lot of people have this time to confront this, and it's not comfortable and it's not easy. And there are days that you're like, oh, I just want all of this to stop, but that's part of growing, and that's part of change, and that's part of becoming the person that you want to be, and the person that you should be, and the person that is the person that should be out in this world and doing good in this world. And I think a lot of people in this climate that we're in forget that, like they forget about how we were brought up, about taking care of your community, taking care of the people that are around you. And it's become so much about me, 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 me. And you're only concerned about me, which is great, because you do have to be there for yourself, and you do have to support yourself, and you do have to be strong within yourself, because if you're not, you can't be for other people. But that's the point. You're being strong and you're improving yourself so that you can then help and improve your community and the people around you, and fight for the people around you.
Very powerful words. I think it's so important right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I just it's a tough road, though. It's a tough road, and good days and bad days. And I think we're so used to just go, 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 that those bad days get thrown behind you. The good days get thrown behind you too, because you're always just moving and not taking the time to actually contemplate the good times or the bad times. And now we're confronted with them without anything to distract us. There's only so many Netflix shows that you can watch. Um, so so yeah, I think this is a hard time, but a great time if you use it.
Time to do the work.
Yeah.
And September on a full moon as we record today, uh, it's a time for harvesting and reaping what you've sown and really kind of looking at what you have put forward. And this month, September especially, is really about preparing for what's coming next. And I think that that's a great analogy for where we are in the world right now. All you can do is keep fortifying yourself and educating yourself and strengthening yourself and preparing for whatever's coming next.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I'm with you 100% on that. Well, great. So let's move on to our last segment, which is something that has brought us joy. Do you want to go first this week?
I'll go first.
Since last
Um,
last time I talked about my cleaver obsessively, why don't you go first?
I'm not, I'm not a big TV person, but I do have my moments, and I'm really in love with Love on the Spectrum on Netflix. I avoided it. I was afraid that it was going to exploit the stories of the people who were featured, and it is quite the opposite. I think what it does is it really opens people's eyes to what it means to be on the spectrum, and and I think it's another great example of when you see real stories from real people, how it changes your perception of words and labels maybe that you think you always knew.
Hmm.
And it also I really love I love the way it kind of opened my eyes to so many things, and it's just so sweet, and the people in it are so beautiful, and like I really just enjoyed it. It was like an escape from the craziness of the world, but with a really powerful message about you know understanding the way how we process information and how we kind of get put in certain boxes, and how we have to look beyond that. So
Oh, nice.
yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's been on my radar, but I just haven't gotten around to watching it. So that's good. That's good to know. What is bringing me joy? Well, my camping brought me joy, but we talked about that enough, so we won't talk about that anymore. Um, what's bringing me joy? I think one of the biggest things that brought me joy was yesterday was my friend Tara's birthday. And and we video chat a lot on WhatsApp. We've been doing it a lot since we've been in quarantine. She's works for Actors Equity, and she's been working from home and taking care of her mom. And her mom's older and had surgery, and she's still recovering. And so she's kind of been in this solitude and not been able to go out and really see people because of the situation that her mom is in. So we had planned on doing a little video chat last night for her birthday. Um, and uh, and as a surprise for her, I decided to bring in all of these other people, all these other friends of ours,
Oh, that's so sweet.
all of who we've met through Wicked. So they've all been part of Wicked in some form or another. And I was able to get them all to like be ready to go. And her and I started talking. And I was like, oh, wait, I need to dial someone in. And then dialed in the first person. And I was like, oh, wait, I need to dial someone else in. And so there were 6 of us all together by the end. And I have not laughed that much in a very, very long time, like laughing till I was crying, and just enjoying and seeing these people that I haven't seen in so long. When you're on the road and when you work on shows, like you make friends, and they're friends while you're there with them. And it's not that you become enemies after, but you sort of lose that. And these are some people that was never lost, no matter how long it is. We still sit right back into that. And there was a moment where and this is something that I think would be really fun. We talked about the 3 things that you spent the most money on during quarantine.
Oh.
So mine were alcohol, all the equipment and technology I needed to do quarantini. So like the microphones, the lighting, the video editing, all of that stuff. And I was like, and I think caftans, really. I think just buying like costume clothing for all the quarantini stuff that I've been doing. And I thought it was like a really fun game to play with friends. What are your 3 things?
Probably whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Well, definitely whiskey. Oh my God, I don't know if I can say mine on camera.
I think I know what one of yours is, but
Yeah, whiskey. Whiskey is probably up there. Probably poppers. And I don't know. I can't think of anything safe to say. I'll give you those 2.
I thought you were going to say pot.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a safe whiskey, poppers, and pot. That says a lot. That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's like a description of you right there. Like,
Yeah, I mean, really, like I haven't really bought anything. I mean, probably the 4th one is mason jars. I have bought so many mason jars during this.
Oh, did you put things in? Like to put
Everything,'s in a mason jar. Like I just on the table next to me, I just have mason jars full of like different crystals and little herbs. Here's some St. John's wort.
all labeled.
Here's some echinacea. Like
Nice.
it's a little crazy. Smoky quartz.
Smoky
I love
quartz.
mason jars.
I love her. Smoky quartz is one of my favorite ladies.
Well, I love that that is a good time for you, and I love that you had a great time camping.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that we can have these conversations, and I just urge everybody to reach out to those friends in your life, maybe the people you haven't spoken to, because sometimes when you're unpacking things from your past and you're researching and reading and trying to figure out where you're moving forward, sometimes it is those friendships that have been around for a while that give you the wherewithal to keep moving on.
Yeah, agreed. And on that note, we are going to say goodbye for this week. We will try and keep updated every 2 weeks.
Yep.
So, we may have some weeks that are a little difficult, but thank you all for listening to us. We're available wherever you find your podcast now, so pretty much almost everything.
Oh yeah, I keep showing stuff, but this is still a podcast.
Yes, it is. So like iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, all the other,
All
whatever.
the other.
The other ones. Buzzsprout is what we use, and then so you can subscribe to us there. And then also, if you want to watch us, you can go to my YouTube channel. Can they finally go to your YouTube channel, James, or no?
Not yet, but they will in the next few weeks once I just get through all this virtual
Great.
business.
So yeah, so my YouTube channel, and if you need a little laugh, you can watch a little Quarantini. As well. So thank you all for joining us. We will see you in another 2 weeks. Thank you, James.
Catch you on the rebound. All right. I love you.
Love you too.
I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye, guys.